For once, Pitt Football had a stress-free game. From start to finish, they took care of business last Saturday. This week, Syracuse comes into town, but how much of a challenge will the Orange be for the Panthers? We discuss that and more on this week's Hail to Pitt podcast.
What was your message about finishing it in these final 30 minutes?
Well, it happened in West Virginia where we knocked off number 2. It happened in South Carolina, and it's happening in Pittsburgh today. Our guys had a lot of guts tonight. We're just going to keep getting better. I mean, that's what it is. There's one hell of a game that you will never, ever forget. We shocked the world! Hail to Pitt.
Hail to Pitt. This is the week of September 19th, 2020, and this is the Hail to Pitt podcast. I am Alan Michael Tazinski.
I'm Vince.
And I'm Pam.
And, man, I don't remember the last time Pitt offense put up a double nickel. I don't remember the last time the Pitt defense just goose-egged a team. When the hell was the last time Pitt was on the right side of the mercy rule? When the hell was there ever a mercy rule? When was Pitt ever not undefeated in non-conference play? Only in a crazy-ass year like 2020. And expectations are now sky high. Pitt is 25th in the nation. Here we go. The AP loves us. You love us. And, well, Pitt just stomped Austin Peay, and that's all they had to do to get there. Now we got Syracuse in town, an old foe. High noon on Saturday, Vince. Let's go. Double-digit favorite.
Let's go. A big noon kickoff on the ACC network. Pitt, Syracuse, it's going to be going down in Heinz Field. I can't wait to talk about it. This is a huge game for the Panthers. Conference season starting, and we got to get started off with a big-time win, and I think the Panthers can do it.
Oh, boy, I would love a mudhole stomping of the Orange. Although, Pam, a 20-plus point favorite going into this game, I don't know. I'm going to start this show off saying I'm not very confident in that, even though Pitt whooped on Austin Peay. I don't know if that was all just smoke and mirrors because that team looked real bad.
Well, I don't know if it's all Austin Peay and Pitt's performance against them. I think Syracuse looked bad against Carolina, too. So I think that's part of the number. The number's too high. Any Pitt fan will tell you it's crazy if you bet Pitt plus 20-something. That's nuts. Nuts.
Yeah, it's a good thing less people are going to Rivers to fall for that trick. At H2P Show on Twitter if you want to follow us. And, of course, you could email us, hail2pittpodcast@gmail.com. We appreciate all your feedback there or on Reddit or on Panther Lair. We're active everywhere when it comes to Pitt Panther social media. This episode, like all, is brought to you by Pretty Easy Podcasts. You can go to prettyeasypodcast.com today to get your own podcast started with a personal producer for a very, very affordable price. Why wouldn't you go to prettyeasypodcast.com if you're looking to start your own podcast? Do it. All right. Got to review that Austin Peay, Austin Peay, Austin PU game, Vince. And first of all, I want to say everything I saw in that game, I have already wiped out of my memory because none of it meant anything. I was not impressed nor upset about one thing. It was Austin Peay.
Yeah, Austin Peay, not a very good team.
They're so bad, they're not even playing a full season. They're done after this week.
They are a team that was totally outmatched, and it kind of showed up in a mercy rule. 10-minute quarters in the second half. I've never seen that before in a Division I game. But I'm not going to go as far as what you said, Alan, and that you're not impressed at all. I think there were some things to get excited about. And the first thing I was excited about, Pam, was this game plan and the execution that the Panthers had. How many times have we seen them play one of these FCS teams and it ends up being a game that's much closer than what it should be? Pitt went out there and they took care of business. regardless of the opponent, and they were aggressive in doing so, I would say. Taking shots deep downfield, mixing it up a little bit. What did you think about the game plan and the execution?
Yeah, I think it was good to see them for 4 quarters play hard, regardless who was on the field for the Pitt Panthers, too, from start to finish.
Yeah.
I think it was a good game plan. They didn't show too many secret things. They didn't need to. They just need to do like regular throwing the ball deep.
I beg to differ. They let Addison out of the bag already. Everyone's game planning for him now, Pam. That was terrible.
I don't. Oh no, that was actually one of the players I was most impressed with. At not only how he played, but the fact that he got so many targets. It doesn't matter. He's out of the bag. Try and stop him.
Yeah, I like that attitude.
That is the mentality you do have to have, I guess. But this game was a lot of good. There were some things we can nitpick, but I will say I'm so happy Izzy Abanikanda was able to get in there and get one of the touchdowns in that game. He wasn't all over the place like Addison, but we saw glimpses. I liked what I saw. Abanikanda forever, Vince.
Yeah, the last style bender came in there, and he looked good. He hit the hole hard. He looked fast. I'll say all the running backs, for the most part, looked very good. We'll be talking about it a little bit more when we talk about Syracuse. But Carter, the bigger running back, he looked pretty good, specifically around the goal line. Vincent Davis looked like he's gotten a little bit better than what he was last year. Todd Sibley, we know what he can do when he's healthy. A.J. Davis, very consistent. So it certainly is a crowded backfield, and you got to be really encouraged, specifically with how some of the newcomers played. For sure, and that's hopefully we know Pitt's running backs are going to be better than they were last year. We're just going to be interesting to see who emerges and where the consistency happens. But I think that was one of the definite positives that you have to feel good about moving forward. But then there were some other things that had me scratching my head, like why'd the backup quarterbacks look so lost out there? I know these guys don't play that much, but Bevel but Yellen's played. They both get in there. They knew they were going to be playing against this scrub team, Pam. And I thought watching both of those guys, God help us if Kenny Pickett is not the quarterback in every single game for every single down moving forward.
Yeah, I do think Bevel did look better than Yellen, though, in there. I think he looked more poised in the pocket and have those deer in the head.
Who was the one throwing like Phil Rivers?
that was
Bevel. Yeah, he has a short like shot put arm almost, but he looked more in control. It took him a little bit to get into it, but
they weren't all playing with the first string. I think that should be noted. But I agree with you, Alan. They didn't look great, and they're alternating series. I'm sure that
that throws you off.
That throws you off a little bit. Do we take first of all? I guess we should note the coach did say that Nick Patty has been a little bit banged up, so maybe that's why he did not play on Saturday, and maybe that explains why he wasn't even listed on the depth chart. So I guess it is possible that if Pickett would get hurt and Patty was healthy, that Patty would be the first man up. I think everybody, I presume everybody would feel a little bit better about that than Bevel or Yellen. But it does seem it was interesting that Bevel was the first guy that came in, even though it was at the very end of a half, and then they kept switching off. But Alan, I'm thinking what you're saying. Despite the awkward throwing motion, that Bevel was the more impressive of the two. Oh, definitely, yeah, for sure. And actually, I'm the awkward throwing motion's endearing as long as he finds his consistency. And yeah, they were alternating, and they were probably also confused. Like, wait, why is this quarter only 10 minutes? Why? No one told me this was going to happen. That really screwed up a lot of the bettors. They had to cancel all bets on the game because of that, because the full amount of time was not played. Well, Alan, I've also been meaning to ask you this specifically about the quarterbacks, and we were not at the game, so we were at, obviously. We were as close.
We could hear it.
Yeah, we were as close to the game as you're legally allowed to be, I think. Or some of the closest.
So, we were at the mercy of the, ACC network television cameras, but you didn't see a whole lot of quarterbacks running to the sideline in between every play to talk to the offensive coordinator. Do you think that, played anything into the game?
Oh my goodness. That last year, I can't believe it lasted as long as it did. And I don't know. You're right. Was this for real? Were they not running to the sideline, or was this TV magic? They said.
You think it was a parlor trick?
Before the game, Mark Whipple said, "Don't show any of my quarterbacks looking at me for plays, all right? Make sure you do me this solid." He knows a guy at the ACC network. Or I will. This was also Austin Peay. If Kenny's not run to the sidelines, having Whipple draw the play on his hand between each play against Syracuse, I'll believe that moment in Pitt time is finally over.
Well, it's hard to say. I will say this: Kenny Pickett, he's got the long hair going. He's warming up in a sleeveless shirt. He looked like his swag was just off the charts. He looks
like the big man on campus of all big men on campus. He looks too cool for any school.
That spells good news for Pitt and the quarterbacks moving forward.
The bad news of this game, though, were all the injury or COVID names that were left out. Rashad Weaver, Keyshawn Camp, the two big standouts, Pam.
And we don't know if that was – there's some COVID protocols. Weaver had a tweet alluding to some maybe inconsistent testing, but so there's nothing been confirmed so far.
Yeah, which is, ludicrous if you ask me, that, the conference and the team can't get that right testing. I mean, the confusion you're hearing, there were multiple different results on multiple tests. Who knows how that's all working, but look at how it could really leave a really good player out of a game. If this was an important game, this would definitely have been given a lot more attention. There would be a lot more outrage from people other than Rashad Weaver himself. But it was at least just the first game, a warm-up game. We'll see how things go moving forward in the ACC, of course, with the demon virus and its stupid head lurking behind every single corner you turn throughout the season. And we're going to be talking about now how the Big Ten's also coming in to ruin the whole season as well a little bit later. But what about this? This is good coming out of the game to close up the Austin Peay game. Kenny Pickett, a better ranked quarterback than Trevor Lawrence, according to PFF, Pro Football Focus's college football ratings people. Kenny finished third overall, ahead of Trevor Lawrence, and only behind the Rattler in OU and the Wells quarterback there in Marshall.
I will say Trevor Lawrence played slightly better opponent in Wake Forest. I mean, I know Wake Forest isn't going to win the ACC this year, but I will say Wake Forest is slightly better than Austin Peay. But regardless, a very impressive performance for Pickett, and that's what you wanted to see in the half that he did play.
I mean, it's 2020, Pam. You don't need to be injecting reality into anything. I mean, just because he played, an actual Power 5 conference school doesn't make Trevor Lawrence better, at least in my warped mind.
Pick it for Heisman then. Let's start the campaign.
Yeah. Let's start it, baby.
He's certainly building the numbers to do so.
He would definitely have the best hair in Heisman history if he won the whole thing. But
really?
I'd put him up there. That I would kill for that Kenny Pickett hair. I'd kill for it.
Well, right. There's probably a lot of quarterback hair out there you'd kill for.
Definitely. Any hair. All right, Syracuse. Here they come. They're 0-1. And, I'm not going to say they looked as bad against UNC as you are, Pam. 31-6 is bad. But that first half, 10-6, and there were turnovers. They hung in there. You saw UNC was not at ease. I feel like the line this week is ridiculous, and they're showing against UNC is being misinterpreted.
No, I think what that was UNC started slow, maybe played down to their opponent. Syracuse is terrible. They're starting a tight end or a fullback on the offensive line. They're starting someone who shouldn't be playing offensive line on the offensive line.
Yeah, they did that last year too.
Tommy DeVito is going to get run over by
Yes.
this Pitt defensive line. He was 13-31 against UNC last week. Syracuse then, UNC kind of found its stride in the second half, and Syracuse ended up giving 451 yards. I think Syracuse is not very good. I really like Dino Babers, but I just think this team, after watching a chunk of that game, is terrible. Not saying Pitt's going to blow them out, because Pitt, we all know what Pitt can do, good and bad.
Well, I will say this, and we talked about this a couple times last year, unfortunately, how great Pitt's defensive line was, and, how they were, leading the country in sacks. But, there were a couple games last year where they could not get to the quarterback. And Miami was one. We're saying, they're starting a freshman quarterback. They're starting, true freshmen at tackle. And, Pitt's defense is just going to have a field day with these guys, and they couldn't get to them. I think Syracuse, we'd have to go back and check the numbers, but I think Syracuse was one of those games where, Pitt's defense should be able to just run all over these guys, but it ended up being a closer game than expected. And I hope that's not the case this week. That is a high number, certainly delay, but you got to think if Pitt's defense can really get after it, and Syracuse offense is as inept as it was last week, Pitt shouldn't have to score that many points in order to win this game comfortably.
They shouldn't. And you bring up a good point, Vince. Getting after the quarterback, it's not a given in this one. I mean, you're talking about Weaver and Camp still having to miss the game because of the rules. We don't know for sure, but the rules in place, at least it looks like they would have to if it's COVID related. But it's a 10-day rule with a positive test.
All these, positive, negative tests, we don't know. I think we won't know until Saturday.
We probably will not. I don't see Pat Narduzzi making that clear before that. At least in terms of Rashad Weaver's situation, if the information he's tweeting out is true, then you would suspect that he's going to miss this game. Keyshawn Camp, we have no idea. He hasn't given out any information. So hopefully those guys can play. But I will say this: you got to feel good about the depth on this defensive line. They're still putting out some good interior line play. I thought all the guys out there were fairly disruptive, and even with Hubba, I guess day to day, the defensive ends still look pretty good. Dayon Hayes, true freshman from Westinghouse, he's leading the country in sacks right now.
Hell yeah!
Not that that's going to happen every week, but this is certainly a step up in competition, as you alluded to. But the talent and the depth is there, and it's very well going to be tested this week, and we'll see if they could rise to the occasion.
And I'm hoping that the depth shows up on the defensive line, because the defensive line and the linebackers for North Carolina really are what broke out their team in the second half. Really what just kind of put the clamps. They put the clamps on Syracuse all game long, but they made huge plays and just frustrated the hell out of DeVito in that game. And that's what Pitt's going to have to do, is going to step up and be like Chaz Surratt was last week for UNC. That guy had, I think all in all, it was in the backfield 5 different times, tackling and sacking people with 2 sacks. And, he was a terror. UNC did that last week to Syracuse, and they played in their backfield the whole time. That's what Pitt's equipped to do. They should be doing that. And then on the other side of the ball, that's where I think the big question mark is because while Pitt executed last week, they really were not tested. And this week they're going to be tested just because they're going to be playing against a defense that's much different than anything they've seen from Syracuse, which is what UNC, I think, fell into last week, Pam. They were started off slow in that game because they had no tape on this new scheme from the Syracuse defense. They figured it out at halftime and ended up blowing them out. Pitt might go through those same kind of growing pains throughout the paces of the game, I think. I would expect that.
Yeah, I could see Pitt starting slow with Syracuse in that 3-3-5 defense, just trying to figure out how to attack it. And then hopefully once they adjust. And it's one thing to go up against it, get practice, but seeing it live play after play is another thing. So I think once they find their rhythm, they'll be okay.
And that's going to be, big. I like what you said there, finding your rhythm. I think that's going to be so critical, being able to establish a good running game, which they should be able to do against the 3-3-5 defense. If the offensive line is playing as good as they would, I think they made a big step forward. I want to see another step forward this coming week. I want to see if they can really push that Syracuse front and get some good running room. I think they could do that. And yet, as far as, passing against the 3-3-5 defense, there's going to be a lot of blitzes coming at them. And the offensive line, the running backs, they got to be ready to pick up those blitzes. But I think one of the things that will help is Pitt showed, this past weekend against bad competition for sure, but they showed that they could hit some passes deep downfield. They were able to connect on some of them, which, in past couple of years, they haven't always been able to do that. And they got some guys that can really stretch the field. And so I think Syracuse is going to know, if you do blitz, there's a good chance that you could get seriously burned.
Oh, I'd love to see that. I'm going to look for some deep balls from Kenny, accurately hitting Addison, the new superstar. That would be ideal. I also want to point out Jake Cradle. He's a dog. Dude, he was very violently playing football last weekend. Whereas I was watching Jimmy Morrissey play that game, critiquing the O-line here a little bit too. He looked like he was maybe taking some plays off in terms of the ferocity and the viciousness, maybe saving himself, Vince, but there can't be any holding back against the Syracuse front this week from the O-line.
Yeah, no, they cannot. And I know, Alan, you're very critical of interior line play technique and how guards are pulling around on toss plays and counters. And that's going to be very critical here, especially with Pitt for running plays, not using a fullback nearly as much. You got to have those linemen that are pulling, they got to be on time and they got to have good technique and get out there.
It's a matchup that favors the Pitt Panthers for certain, but how much was last week a smoke and mirrors or a revelation maybe about how damn good the Pitt defense is going to be and how improved the offense is going to be, where I think we'll find out right away against Syracuse. And if you are all ready to predict this game, Vince and Pam, I am, and I think I got a particular number in mind for it too.
Okay. So Syracuse right now a 21.5-point underdog at the Westgate in Las Vegas. That's a big number for Pitt to cover. But I will say this. I think there's a good chance that they could do it. I think this could be maybe not the same fashion that North Carolina beat Syracuse in, but I could see a similar score.
All right, if you believe Pitt might even be able to cover this thing, I got to rethink my entire pick for this game then. I'm going to hold off on it till the end of the show. I can't do it right now. I'm not ready.
I'm going to say that Pitt's going to win this game. We'll say 31-10. How about that?
Ooh, that's not a cover.
It would not cover.
I can't believe it. I can't believe how confident he is after beating Austin Peay, Pam.
Well, I'm pretty confident too, but I think it's going to be like 33-17. Okay. Syracuse is going to get like a late score. The game's not Pitt's going to start slow. Then once they find their rhythm, the game won't be in doubt, but it won't be a cover.
Ooh, is Syracuse really that bad?
I love Dino Babers. He might be my favorite coach in the ACC, but
he lost a lot of points with me last week. He's one of the worst coaches in terms of mask etiquette. He never had his mask over his nose the entire game. Him and Sean McVay, low grades for me for mask wearing from coaches. With Andy Reid, of course, being the pinnacle in all of sports right now for how to properly protect you and others.
Well, the NFL's side note is going to start to fine people. I don't know. They can't really do that in college football.
Yeah,
maybe
definitely
if
not.
Somebody was in charge, they could.
Yeah, there's no one in charge. It is truly inmates running an asylum on Saturdays, which makes it so damn fun. And maybe I'll save my Pitt Syracuse score prediction as I mull it over for the end of the show here for the next handful of minutes. What do you say we go into the interwebs and see what they're talking about on the Pitternet here, Pam?
Yeah, we got to see what everyone's talking about. Lots of chatter after that Austin Peay game.
Can you explain what internet is?
I hear there's rumors on the internets.
And to all those faceless keyboard warriors on Twitter.
But we're a good darn football team. I'm proud of these guys.
Anthony at TW Sports 7 on Twitter said, although our football team has undoubtedly taken years off my life from stress, I'll gladly trade that off for Pitt saving the world. And Pam, this is reference to a big discovery on campus earlier this week or last week.
Yeah, absolutely. Good tweet from Anthony. I think that sums up a lot of stuff. But he was tweeting a tweet from the University of Pittsburgh saying scientists have an antibody that completely and specifically neutralizes COVID-19. So this discovery has led to a drug which could be a potential treatment. So way to go, Pitt scientists. And if Pitt saves the world, those stress off of years off of life is worth it.
Oh, hell yeah. And that's what it's all about at the University of Pittsburgh. Saving lives, changing the world, neutralize the virus. If I could bring a sign and go to the game, that's what mine would say. Good tweet there at TWS Sports 7 on the Pitternet. What about my favorite tweet of the week, though? That one was really good, but nothing better than a real teaser with cryptic language and numbers, Vince. And the Pitt Football Twitter just tweeted out over the weekend 9/26/20, and then a video showing a whole lot of steel clanging and banging. What did that mean?
Yeah, I consider myself an expert in these kinds of messages where you just all there is a date and then some images that don't quite make any sense. But to me, this seems like something to deal with. Alternate uniforms, maybe similar to the ones the basketball team wore, the black and gold. Previous season, I could see something like that for the football team. And if you looked at some of the Pitt players warming up, you saw that, and I believe Kenny Pickett was one of them. He was wearing a black Pitt Panthers sleeveless shirt. So that's my prediction. We'll see what happens. But we got to take care of business this Saturday before we could get to that big showdown following week against Louisville.
Yeah, nothing would look better than an undefeated team wearing some black and yellow, if that truly is what those signs and messages mean from that cryptic video. Really cool. And last one I got here, Cam877 on Reddit, in the Pitt Panthers Reddit subreddit, said, to think all we needed all this time was the Pac-12 and the Big Ten just falling off the face of the earth in response to Pitt being ranked number 25, Pam. Although, that's only half right now.
And it might not be any right coming up. We can talk about that in our college football national segment.
But he's right. There were no two huge conferences not playing football, and somehow that opened up the door for Pitt and the Ragin' Cajuns of all teams to be ranked in the top 25. But that's what they're all talking about. And actually, a lot of people were on the Pitternet clamoring, Vince, for a Ragin' Cajun Pitt Panther showdown.
I didn't
see
hear
that part of
say
the internet.
that,
I missed that.
But
I saw that on Ragin' Cajun's subreddit, Pitt subreddit, and people in my DMs at Alan Michael Show.
Was anybody saying that on 103.7 The Game in Acadiana?
Down in Lafayette, they would have, but they actually really don't even talk about the Cajuns, and that's like not even a mile from campus at that radio station. But that's just what they do down there. But what a weird time to be alive. Pitt Panthers ranked number 25. Crazy. What is this world? And would they bump up if they beat Syracuse, you think, Pam?
I don't know if they, maybe like one or two spots there. It depends what other teams do around them.
Depends on what other teams do, I think.
And other teams' matchups, but I don't expect them to jump big if they beat Syracuse.
I think Pitt could kill Syracuse by 30, and there will still be 6 to 8 Big Ten teams ranked ahead of them, and they won't even be playing for another month. That's what I expect.
Unfortunately, we're going to talk about that, but that could be true.
It could be. All right, well, that's what they're saying in the Pitternet. What about in the real world, around town, down Woolies maybe, in the Strip? Or maybe they're just talking about it in Zoom meetings between the local Elks lodges. I don't know. We could find out, though, right now, Vince, can't we?
Yeah, we can. A lot of talk about, this is out of all the games Pitt's played against FCS teams, I feel like this is the one most talked about in recent memory.
Oh, they're talking.
Another Saturday coming, and the Panthers are playing. Trying to find out what the Panthers are saying.
That Austin Peay sucked, but they got that JT Oatswald.
Yeah, he's pretty good. Reminds me of a kid who used to play on Stowe Rocks.
I bet Stowe or even that Greensburg Salem could beat him.
Hail to Pitt.
What the Panthers are saying.
So that's what the Inzers are saying. Panthers have moved on from Austin Peay and getting ready for this big ACC showdown, big noon kickoff with Syracuse, first game in the ACC, Alan. But there's a lot of news going around college football. We got a big game in the ACC, and we got some conferences that have decided to play, apparently.
Oh, college football! You will not allow the NFL to have this moment. You will not allow any other sports, NBA playoffs, nothing. Have the week.
WNBA playoffs.
WNBA playoffs. Maya Moore marrying the guy she got out of prison. All this huge news happening. But, of course, college football and the craziness dominates when you make an announcement like the Big Ten did earlier today. Figuring it out, I guess. Having a whole plan. And now they're saying they will play an 8-game season starting October 24th and a championship game on December 19th. One day before those college football playoff rankings are doled out. That is the timeline. They have all sorts. I read it, the whole statement and the whole rules and regulations. They've got all kinds of plans, rapid testing, also cardiac monitors and databases to monitor symptoms after players get infected. They're anticipating everything here now. They've figured it out, I guess, and now they're ready to execute. And the Big Ten is now ready to ruin the college football season we were all set to enjoy, Pam.
Well, and also some breaking news. Probably by the time this podcast drops, there may be more movement, but there's a lot of movement right now with the Pac-12 moving to play as well. ESPN's Heather Dinich reports that a source with knowledge of the discussions told me with clearance at the local level in California and Oregon, it's possible that the Pac-12 can return as soon as late October as well. So definitely movement for the Pac-12 as well. My question, I haven't fully looked at the calendar, but are these teams getting any bye weeks? Okay, nope. So this is my big question. How many games in the ACC have we seen moved around, like Virginia Tech? The ACC has already had to move a bunch of games around.
So it's the Big 12.
So it's the Big 12. Maybe the
SEC has not started any play yet. So,
but we looked at conference. Was it? What conference is Memphis? Conference USA, AAC. They've had to move games around. So with no flexibility, if one school gets COVID or one game has to get moved, you have zero flexibility. Right?
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
my biggest takeaway. There's a lot of takeaways I have about this Big Ten situation, but that's one thing that I think people need to address is there's no flexibility. So are you going to have a team that's only played 6 or 7 games?
I suppose that's possible. It's just, you could have, when we've had discussions on, whether, football should be played, should not be played, but to me, it just seems, they were so adamant about not playing in, it seems like July at this
on 11-3 vote.
In July or late July, early August. And to me, not a whole lot has changed since then.
I mean, maybe they have better testing, but still,
is it strictly just political pressure?
Yes, it 100% is, and it's also coaches complaining. Money, coaches complaining, but in a year where you decided to follow in the Mac's footsteps, that's the road you chose to go down and play in the spring and aim for that. That's fine. That is totally commendable, and I would have respected it, and I would have respected the Big Ten champion coming out of that season. I would have respected if they got together with the other teams, Pac-12, other conferences playing in the spring, and they had their own thing, their own season at that time of the year. And we have this fall thing going on here, and it's a party. And it looks a lot of fun, but it's a very dangerous party, and it's riddled with landmines all over the place and all sorts of craziness. And we don't know if we'll get to a championship still. And when we do, we don't know what that big fat asterisk is going to be like and feel like for the team that wins the championship. Now the Big Ten coming in late into the season and expecting fully to have a college football playoff representative 100% will be slapping an asterisk on whoever wins it. They can enjoy it, but this is a weird season, and the Big Ten just made it weirder. And also, I'm just not comfortable with their plan and really them flip-flopping this way out of nowhere, like things have gotten better across the country or even on their own damn campuses, which they have not. University of Illinois in particular, or Illinois University, excuse me, is just absolutely a wreck with virus cases and shutdowns.
Well, that's the thing. It seems like, and you talked about it, how there was tremendous outlash from coaches specifically, players, players' families. The presidents that made these decisions of the universities, they had to have known that there was going to be this horrible, just outcry of how could you do this? And to see them cave like this is it's a little disappointing.
Do they feel this much better about the testing and the protocols? Like, honestly, they should have had, if they could have had this in place, like all this guidelines of this percentage, and it's a little complicated what they, percentages and all that, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem like anything's changed. If anything, things gotten worse. And honestly, like, I personally don't feel like maybe the ACC or anyone should be playing college football. And we said that when we started the show back up, as long as Pitt's playing, we're going to talk about it. But I respected the Big Ten for doing what I think's the right thing.
Yeah, so. and you had, with all the money at stake for them playing, and you had since, essentially April, when all this was happening, to come up with a plan. And then you said, we can't do this. And then to all of a sudden say that you can. I mean, it's just a little ridiculous to me. And I mean, it's
hard for us to say because our conference is playing and saying it's ridiculous. It's just the flip-flop.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's the part that is ridiculous. And on the football side of it, I'm fascinated to see what they're going to do here because,
they're going to play 9 games.
The champion would have played 9 games total. Are they going to, is that going to be held against them for whenever, you have an SEC champion that played 11 SEC games, or you have an ACC champion that played 12 games total, or a Big 12 champion.
Or an undefeated Raging Cajuns team.
Or an undefeated Raging Cajuns team. I would love to see the Cajuns make the playoff, an undefeated Cajuns team make the playoff over an undefeated Ohio State team.
You can't even finish that sentence without laughing.
Oh, how great would it be?
It'd be the best.
It'd make it all worth. They deserve it.
It would make it all worth it.
The other interesting thing that we're going to learn more about in the coming days is some of these players who have opted out. I saw a report, like one of the Ohio State players, I'm not sure specifically, who opted out. He might want to play now because they're going to play, but he already had contact with an agent. So he didn't sign, but he had contact. So now he might have to apply for a waiver. The NCAA has to look into it. So we know that's going to be a mess with these players because they didn't think they were going to play. They rightfully opted out, and now they are going to play. So the NCAA is not going to do the right thing and allow these players to play, right? The right thing would be allow them to play because your conference flip-flopped.
What did they opt out for?
They opted out to enter the draft because they were thinking there was going to be a spring season, so they made contact with agents.
Well, I guess that there were players on teams that are playing right now, already playing, that opted out, for the draft or a number of other reasons.
But they're not trying to play again, are they? No.
Well, no, they're not. Which is so. I guess that's kind of my point. I don't know if you're going to see that much difference. I don't foresee a lot of people opting back in.
There's already been a report that one Ohio State player wants to.
Well, that's one guy, but
we'll see.
I like it. I just like it because the NCAA damn sure will enforce that rule for sure. You can't talk to an agent. You can't talk to a bagman, but
our conferences can flip flop.
Yeah. If you end up changing your mind, you want to play, you don't care if your coaches are wearing masks on the sidelines or anywhere around campus. Yeah, whatever. No big deal. It's crazy hypocrisy. It's silly. Hopefully they do the right thing. At least let these players opt back in and, finish their college career.
Right.
And we'll see what happens. Then with the Pac-12, I just can't imagine. Aren't they waiting on government approval? Is the air quality even going to be at a reasonable level for half the teams in that conference? I mean, it's those fires will be burning well into October as well. Everyone knows this. They're only 3% contained right now.
That's the air quality is a different issue, but I guess they're trying to work with the governors of Oregon and California and it seems like there's a lot of momentum. Pac-12 released a statement, so we'll see what happens with that.
I think a lot of it depends on in terms of the air quality, where the games are going to be played at. It says San Francisco 49ers of the NFL play their game despite, air quality. Maybe it's going to get worse, as time goes on or something. I think location is certainly going to play a big factor in that.
And I'm definitely going to be watching out to see how many of those members of the 49ers and who'd they play? The Cardinals?
Yeah.
Yeah, Kyler Murray gets emphysema in the next few years. We'll know why. 200 air AQI. I got that Dyson air purifier. I monitor AQI all day long. Pittsburgh's isn't very good. And that's and it's horrible out there in those fires. It's just the air you breathe is very important.
It is.
If you learn anything on this show today, you Pitt Panther fan, the air you breathe, very important. And we also have something else very important. Miami versus Louisville, Pam. Game of the week, I say. I can't wait for this one. And I'm hoping Derek King pulls it out and keeps your hopes of the U getting into the playoff alive.
Well, I don't hope. I just think. And I think Miami, they're a 2.5-point underdog.
Yeah.
At Louisville. Miami's going to win.
Do you really think so?
Miami's going to win. Vince, I picked them to go to the playoff. Yes, I think they're going to be.
Scott Satterfield.
I do love, but I think Miami's going to win. I think it won't be super close. It'll be competitive. Let me say that. But Miami, I'm confident Miami will win.
Wow.
I'm not as confident, but I think they've got. Game? This is a 7:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff on ABC, and it's the match picker, the projector, and the predictors all over the internet from CBS to ESPN that I was reading. Louisville seems like a heavy favorite on those websites compared to betting odds. Vince, a lot of people are digging what Louisville's doing, although. I feel like I'm with Pam. I feel like Miami's going to win this as well. I think they've got the D to hold off a team that, didn't look too great against Western Kentucky, although they got it done.
Yeah, there was, in that Western Kentucky game, there was, I think, a couple special teams turnovers and another turnover that led to some really good field position for Western Kentucky that made that game look a little bit closer than it actually was. I think Louisville knew that they, and probably Miami to an extent too. They were most likely going to win those games, and they had a big game on deck and didn't necessarily need to, put the pedal to the metal. But this is going to be a great game. Mm-hmm. I can't wait to watch this one. I don't know who to pick. I'm very torn on this. Because I think, I think Louisville's offense, Miami certainly got the better defense, but I think Louisville's offense is pretty good. I think they're going to be able to score, and Miami, it'll be interesting to see against a step up in competition. Most likely, is King, the quarterback, going to be able to really take command of that offense and get it done? I don't know. I'm going to leave it up to the experts on this one.
It'll be good to watch this game because get some more information on Louisville before the following week against Pitt. Hopefully Miami gets them real tired.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's a track meet and they unleash everything they got. The Louisville Cardinals against the Miami Hurricanes this weekend. Going to be a really fun game, and I can't wait. College football Saturday. They probably shouldn't be playing, but damn it, we're going to be watching. And I guess now a bunch of these pages in this Phil Steele magazine I got, Vince, are now actually worth something, and I should start reading up on the Big Ten and Pac-12 because I completely ignored those sections so far.
There's a lot of people that rip those sections out of their books.
Yes, and they use them for the fires and wiping things. Yeah, but I kept mine intact just in case. Had a feeling. And I also have a feeling about the Pitt Panthers. Ready to hear my score, Pam?
I'm ready.
All right. Well, taking into account my pessimism after an Austin Peay game, and then your optimism, Pam, about the running game and the overall offense, and then Vince's optimism going as far as almost picking them to cover, it has changed my score I had initially, which was a 35-34 squeaker against a team that Pitt always lets score way too many points and plays way too close. I'm going to go now 36-33. I'm changing my score a little bit. Pitt Panthers over the Syracuse Orange. I have no idea who on Syracuse could score or, put anything on the Pitt defense, but that's what happens every year.
That's bad news. If this Syracuse team could score 33 points against Pitt's defense, I think that's going to spell bad news, going forward, win or lose.
Oh, that's what I foresee, unfortunately. How do you like me now? It's what happens. Oh, we've crushed them a couple times before. Are they that bad this time around, Pam? I didn't get that feeling. UNC is also very good.
The men and women in the desert must know something, too, as well. That point spread is high, so I think Syracuse isn't very good, and maybe Pitt's getting some respect.
And it hasn't moved down, so it's not like there's a lot of sharps coming in on the Orange.
Well, I hope I'm wrong. I hope you're right, and I hope it's Another one of the game like we saw last week. I could watch that all season long, Vince.
Yeah. It was nice to just sit back and relax and just watch a good old-fashioned whooping.
It was a lot of fun. Let's hope we get more of the same. Pam, you got anything left before we head into this weekend?
Just hail to Pitt.
Hail to Pitt.
Hail to Pitt, everybody. Thanks for listening and subscribing, and we will see you next week.